Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the Phoenix, her weathered hands resting on the manual control column that most spacefaring species had abandoned centuries ago. The crystalline spires of Nexus Prime loomed before her, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns in a kaleidoscope of colors. The city was a testament to the collective's technological superiority, or at least, that's what they claimed. Approaching vessel, identify yourself and state your purpose. A melodic voice chimed through the comm system, its artificial perfection making Sarah's teeth ache. This is the independent vessel Phoenix, registration Earth Maritime Authority, 2-4-7-9-3. Sarah responded, keeping her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. Request permission to dock for contracted repairs on behalf of Merchant Klazar. There was a pause, longer than the usual processing delay. Sarah knew what they were seeing, a ship that looked more like a floating junkyard than a space-worthy vessel. The Phoenix was a patchwork of salvaged parts, its hull a mismatched collection of metals and composites. But beneath its rough exterior lay Sarah's genius. Systems that could adapt to almost any situation, redundancies that most modern ships had eliminated in favor of sleeker designs. Scanning complete, the voice returned, now tinged with what Sarah recognized as disdain. Your vessel fails to meet minimum technological requirements for entry into Nexus Prime. Furthermore, our records indicate that your propulsion system utilizes outdated fusion principles that pose potential risks to our environment. Sarah bit back a laugh. Outdated? My outdated fusion drive produces less radiation than your atmospheric processors. I can provide ratings. Irrelevant. The voice cut her off. Your presence has been logged, and your contract with Merchant Klazar has been voided due to failure to meet basic entry requirements. Please vacate Nexus Prime space immediately. The Phoenix's systems buzzed with incoming data, official rejection notices, suggested alternative ports, and a subtle but clear threat assessment marking her ship as potentially hostile due to its unpredictable nature. Listen, Sarah tried again. I've got certifications from 12 different stellar nations. My work is guaranteed. Your Earth certifications are not recognized by the collective. This is your final warning. Vacate or face impoundment. Sarah's fingers tightened on the controls as she watched sleek enforcement drones detach from their docking stations, their weapon systems humming to life. The rational move would be to retreat, to find work in the outer colonies where they were less picky about appearances. But Sarah Chen hadn't become one of Earth's most sought-after engineers by backing down from a challenge. Phoenix, they're targeting our primary systems, her ship's eye warned, its voice carrying the slight static of age. Unlike the perfect synthetic tones of collective A's, Sarah had programmed hers to maintain some rough edges. It helped her think clearer in crisis situations. Let them try, Sarah muttered, her hands dancing across the manual controls. Reroute power through the secondary shields. Show me the gaps in their patrol pattern. Sarah, the A's tone carried a note of concern. Their targeting systems are highly advanced. The probability off. The probability is irrelevant when you're dealing with human ingenuity. Sarah cut in, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Remember that incident in the Carina Nebula? They said we had a 0.01% chance of surviving that ion storm. And you nearly got us killed proving them wrong. The eye retorted, but it was already adjusting the ship's systems according to her commands. The enforcement drones were closing in, their formations perfect, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. But Sarah saw what they didn't: the arrogance in their programming, the assumption that no primitive vessel could possibly outmaneuver their advanced systems. Time to show them why humans still use manual controls, Sarah said, her smile widening as she initiated her plan. The Phoenix might not have been pretty, but it was about to prove that humanity's outdated engineering had some surprises in store for the collective. The real question was, would Nexus Prime survive the demonstration? The first sign that something was wrong came not from Nexus Prime's sophisticated early warning systems, but from Sarah's jury-rigged sensor array. As she prepared to demonstrate the Phoenix's capabilities to the approaching enforcement drones, her eyes' voice crackled with urgency. "Sarah, I'm detecting unusual power fluctuations in the city's central grid. The pattern matches systemic cascade failure." Sarah's hands froze over the controls. Through the Phoenix's viewport, she could see the perfect, crystalline towers of Nexus Prime still gleaming in the fading sunlight. But beneath that pristine surface, her sensors told a different story. "Show me," she commanded, and her outdated holographic display flickered to life, presenting a chaotic web of energy readings. Where there should have been smooth, regulated power flow, she saw spikes and dips that made her engineer's heart skip a beat. "Their automated systems are attempting to compensate," the AI reported, "but the corrections are only accelerating the destabilization." Sarah watched as sections of the city's power grid began to flicker. The enforcement drones, moments ago so threatening, suddenly wavered in their formation as their control signals became erratic. "This is impossible," came the melodic voice of Nexus Prime's control system, but now there was a note of strain in its perfect tones. "Our systems are." The voice cut out, replaced by a cacophony of emergency broadcasts in various alien languages. Sarah didn't need translations to understand the panic in those voices. "Their main reactor is going critical," she muttered, reading the increasingly alarming sensor data. "They've automated everything, linked it all together in one perfect system. And now they have a perfect failure," her AI finished. "Their systems are too specialized, too interdependent. They can't isolate the problem without shutting down vital city functions." Sarah ran her hands through her short black hair, mind racing through possibilities. The enforcement drones had retreated, presumably recalled to handle the growing crisis. She could leave now, escape before the situation worsened. It would serve them right, after the way they treated her. But that wasn't who she was. "Get me a channel to their emergency control center," she ordered, already bringing up the Phoenix's engineering schematics, "and prepare the EVA suit, the one with the manual overrides." "Sarah," her eyes' voice carried a warning. "Their systems are highly advanced. Any attempt to interface with them could be seen as hostile action." "Their systems are failing exactly because they're so advanced," Sarah countered, checking the seals on her battered EVA suit. "Sometimes you need a screwdriver instead of a quantum manipulator." After several tense moments, a harried-looking alien face appeared on her comm screen. The being's crystalline features were arranged in what Sarah recognized as extreme distress. "This is Chief Administrator Vexna," the alien said. "Unregistered vessel, you are ordered to maintain your distance from." "My name is Sarah Chin," she cut in, "and in about 20 minutes, your city's power grid is going to experience a complete meltdown. Your automated systems can't fix it because they're part of the problem. But I can help." "Impossible," Vexna replied, but there was uncertainty in those faceted eyes. "Our systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. A human couldn't possibly." A massive power surge interrupted the administrator's speech, causing the transmission to flicker. In the background, Sarah could hear the rising pitch of warning sirens. "Your advanced systems are killing you," Sarah said bluntly. "But I've spent my life fixing things that everyone else said were too broken to save. Let me help, or evacuate your city. Those are your options." There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of alarms and the increasingly urgent chatter of alien emergency responses. "You have no certification," Vexna said finally. "No recognized training. No understanding of our technology." Sarah smiled grimly. "What I have is experience with failure. Real failure, not the theoretical kind your simulations predict. I've held ships together with patch jobs and prayer. I've rebuilt systems that your people would have scrapped. And right now, I'm your only option." Another surge rocked the city, and this time Sarah could see actual darkness spreading through sections of those perfect crystalline towers. "If you're wrong," Vexna said, "if you make things worse, then you can ban humans from your space forever," Sarah replied, already heading for the Phoenix's airlock. But I'm not wrong. Now, are you going to let me save your city, or are we going to keep arguing until it's too late? The answer came in the form of a docking vector, transmitted just as another section of the city went dark. Sarah sealed her helmet, checked her tools one last time, and prepared to prove that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the right one. Sometimes you needed someone who understood how things break. And humans, she thought with grim satisfaction, were experts at both breaking things and putting them back together. The docking collar of Nexus Prime's engineering sector looked like something out of a luxury cruise liner, all gleaming metal and pulsing status lights. Sarah's magnetic boots clanked against the pristine floor as she stepped through, her battered EVA suit a stark contrast to the immaculate surroundings. The primary core is 3 levels down, a holographic guide materialized beside her, its form flickering with each power surge. But our maintenance systems cannot. Show me your oldest access tunnel, Sarah interrupted, checking the jerry-rigged diagnostic tool she'd built from spare parts. The one you haven't automated yet. That would be highly irregular, the guide protested. Those passages were sealed when we upgraded to quantum. Another surge hit, stronger than the last. Throughout the station, Sarah could hear the groaning of stressed metal, a sound that no amount of advanced technology could fully eliminate. Your quantum systems are the problem, Sarah explained, already moving toward a maintenance hatch she'd spotted. They're too perfect, too interconnected. Like a chain reaction you can't stop. But older tech. She patted the hatch's manual release. It fails in predictable ways. The guide's projection followed her as she wrestled with the hatch. Our engineers have tried everything within safety protocols. That's your second problem, Sarah grunted, finally forcing the hatch open. Sometimes you have to work outside the protocols. She peered down the dark shaft, her suit's lights revealing decades of disuse. Perfect. This'll take me right where I need to go. But the safety systems are part of your failing network, Sarah finished. She pulled herself into the shaft, ignoring the way her suit scraped against the narrow walls. Keep your people away from the core. Things might get messy. The descent through the maintenance shaft was like traveling backward through time. Sarah passed layer after layer of technological evolution, from the current quantum systems to earlier versions, each abandoned but never removed. The deeper she went, the more familiar things looked. I'm reading critical instability in the core, her AI reported through her suit's comm. Their containment fields are starting to fluctuate. Of course they are, Sarah muttered, finally reaching the bottom of the shaft. They tried to make it too perfect. She forced open another hatch, emerging into a service corridor that hummed with barely contained energy. In engineering, you have to plan for failure. The core chamber itself was a cathedral to technological advancement. Quantum matrices sparkled like stars, their light reflecting off crystalline control surfaces that responded to thought rather than touch. And at the center, a pillar of pure energy pulsed with increasing instability. Stop. A new voice echoed through the chamber. A group of alien engineers stood at their control stations, their crystalline features rigid with alarm. You cannot be here. The quantum interfaces require. I'm not here for your quantum interfaces, Sarah said, making her way to what looked like an ancient backup control panel. It was covered in dust, forgotten but not removed. I'm here because you forgot something important. She reached into her tool belt and pulled out what looked like a primitive circuit board, its components a mix of Earth and alien technology. Forgot what? One of the engineers demanded. That complexity isn't always the answer. Sarah began connecting her device to the old panel. Sometimes you need a simple solution, a circuit breaker, not a quantum filter. The aliens watched in horror as she bypassed their safety systems, routing power through her crude device. That will never work. The energy requirements will overload any quantum system you have, Sarah finished. But this, she held up her device, this is designed to fail. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. The core's pulsing reached a fever pitch. Warning signals blared throughout the station. Sarah took a deep breath, double-checked her connections, and reached for the manual override. "You're going to destroy everything," one of the engineers cried. Sarah's hand closed around the lever. "No," she said quietly. "I'm going to save it." She pulled. For a moment, everything went dark. The quantum matrices flickered and died. The crystalline surfaces went dull. Even the artificial gravity wavered. Then, one by one, systems began to come back online. Not the advanced ones. They were safely isolated now. Instead, backup systems that hadn't been used in decades hummed to life, their simple, reliable circuits doing what quantum perfection couldn't. "It's working," her eye confirmed. "Core stability is increasing. The cascade has been stopped." Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she watched the alien's expression shift from horror to disbelief to grudging understanding. "How?" one finally asked. "Our best minds couldn't." "Your best minds tried to make it perfect," Sarah explained, already beginning to modify her temporary fix into something more permanent. "But perfect systems don't exist. You need redundancy. Backup plans. Sometimes you need technology primitive enough to survive when everything else fails." She gestured to the now stabilizing core. "Your city isn't saved because I'm smarter than you. It's saved because humans remember what it's like to fail, and we've learned to plan for it." The aliens looked at each other, then at their city's heart, now beating with a steadier rhythm thanks to technology they'd considered obsolete. It was, Sarah thought, a lesson that might just change how they viewed humanity's primitive ways. The next 12 hours tested every skill Sarah had learned in her 15 years of engineering. While the immediate crisis had been averted, Nexus Prime's systems weren't designed to run on backup power forever. Each sector of the massive city needed to be carefully transitioned back to main power, but only after Sarah's modifications were implemented to prevent another cascade failure. "The medical sector is reporting critical power requirements," her AI informed her as she worked inside another junction box, sweat beading inside her helmet. "Their stasis pods can't maintain integrity on emergency power much longer." Sarah's hands moved swiftly, splicing connections that hadn't been touched in decades. "Route emergency power from the entertainment district. They can live without their holographic gardens for a few hours." A crystalline face appeared in her helmet display. Administrator Vexna, looking both exhausted and confused. "Our engineers have analyzed your solution. They claim it shouldn't work, that it violates several fundamental principles of power management." "That's because they're thinking in quantum algorithms," Sarah replied, not looking up from her work. "I'm thinking in terms of what can go wrong. Like this connection here. See how I'm leaving a deliberate gap in the power flow." A deliberate flaw. Vexna's face showed what passed for horror in their species, but that would reduce efficiency by at least 30%. "Exactly." Sarah sealed the junction box and moved to the next one. "That gap means if something goes wrong, the system fails here, in a way we can predict and control. Better to lose 30% efficiency than have another cascade failure." She could practically hear the administrator's crystalline features grinding against each other in distress. "But our systems are designed for perfection. The quantum matrices are beautiful pieces of engineering," Sarah interrupted, "but they're too interconnected. One flaw spreads through the whole network. Sometimes you need deliberate imperfection to prevent catastrophic failure." The medical sector's power indicators began to stabilize as Sarah's modifications took effect. She allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction before moving on. There were still dozens of critical systems that needed attention. "Your approach is," Vexna seemed to struggle for words. "Primitive is not the correct term. Perhaps organic. Humans learned engineering from nature first," Sarah explained, now working on a main power conduit. "And nature isn't perfect. It's redundant, adaptable. When a tree loses a branch, it doesn't shut down the whole forest." A team of alien engineers had been following her progress, their initial disdain giving way to reluctant fascination. One of them, braver than the rest, approached with a question. But how do you account for the quantum variance in the power flow? Our calculations show. Show me your calculations, Sarah interrupted, wiping sweat from her brow. The alien projected a complex series of equations into the air. Sarah studied them for a moment, then laughed. There's your problem. You're assuming perfect conductivity. Of course. Our materials. Nothing's perfect, Sarah said, pulling a piece of salvaged wire from her toolkit. Look at this. Earth copper, about 50 years old. See these imperfections. They create micro-disruptions in the power flow. In your system, that's a flaw. In mine, it's a feature. Those disruptions prevent power surges from building up too much momentum. The alien engineer stared at the wire as if seeing such technology for the first time. In a way, they were. Their civilization had advanced so far, so fast, they'd forgotten the fundamental principles that had gotten them there. But this reduces efficiency, another engineer protested. Our systems are designed to. A warning alarm cut through their discussion. Sarah's diagnostic tool showed another power spike building in the residential sector. Theory later, she said, already moving toward the problem. Right now, we've got work to do. Who's coming with me? To her surprise, several of the alien engineers stepped forward. Their crystalline features showed a mix of curiosity and determination. They had begun to understand that there was something to learn from this human and her primitive methods. As they worked through the night, Sarah taught them more than just engineering. She taught them about redundancy, about the value of imperfection, about the wisdom hidden in older, simpler technologies. And maybe, just maybe, she was teaching them something about humanity itself. You know, she said to one of the engineers as they rerouted another power sector, your quantum matrices are incredible achievements. We're not saying you should abandon them. Just, maybe keep a few backup systems. Things simple enough to fix with a wrench and some copper wire. The aliens' crystalline features arranged themselves in what Sarah had learned was their version of a smile. Perhaps, they said, we have something to learn from human engineering after all. Sarah grinned back. And maybe we have something to learn from your quantum matrices. Once we get your city stable, how about we talk about combining our approaches? After all, the best solutions usually come from meeting in the middle. Above them, Nexus Prime's lights continued to steadily return to life, each one a testament to the power of combining advanced technology with practical wisdom. A week after the crisis, Sarah stood at a viewport in Nexus Prime's central administration tower, watching ships dock with a grace that seemed almost impossible before her modifications. The city's power grid now ran on a hybrid system, quantum matrices working in harmony with what the aliens have begun calling Chen pattern redundancies. Your docking request has been upgraded to permanent status, Administrator Vexna said, approaching with the characteristic chime of crystalline movement. The Phoenix will always be welcome in Nexus Prime. Sarah turned from the viewport, noting how the administrator's formerly rigid posture had softened somewhat. Just the Phoenix, or all human vessels. We are. Vexna's features shifted in what Sarah now recognized as embarrassment, reviewing our technological requirements. Your intervention has prompted considerable discussion among the collective's leadership. Good. Sarah crossed her arms, her weathered engineer's hands marked with fresh burns and cuts from the week's work. Because there's something you should know about human ships, especially the ones that look like they're held together with spare parts and hope. Oh. The administrator's crystalline features arranged themselves in curiosity. Those ships, Sarah smiled. They're the ones you want around when everything goes wrong. Because their crews have learned what your quantum matrices couldn't teach you. How to adapt, how to improvise, how to turn failure into opportunity. A group of alien engineers passed by, each carrying tools that would have looked out of place a week ago. Physical wrenches alongside quantum manipulators, basic circuit testers next to advanced diagnostic arrays. They nodded respectfully to Sarah, no longer seeing her as a primitive curiosity. We are implementing your suggested changes throughout the city, Vexna said, gesturing to a holographic display of Nexus Prime systems. Each sector now has what you call mechanical bypasses and analog backups. Our efficiency ratings have dropped by 12%, but your survival rating has increased by 100%. Sarah pointed out, sometimes the strongest systems are the ones that bend instead of break. The administrator's features arranged themselves in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a thoughtful frown. Your methods challenge everything we believed about technological progress. We thought advancement meant leaving the past behind. Real progress, Sarah said, watching as a human trading vessel was welcomed into a docking bay without hesitation, means learning from everything, past and present, success and failure, simple and complex. She turned back to Vexna. Your quantum matrices are incredible achievements, but they're even better now that they have backup systems simple enough for anyone to fix. Indeed, Vexna's crystalline form caught the light in a way that suggested pride. We have already received requests from other collective cities to implement similar hybrid systems. They are calling it the Nexus Chen Protocol. Sarah laughed. Sounds fancy. I just call it common sense. Perhaps, the administrator said, that is why we needed a human perspective. We had advanced so far into complexity that we have forgotten the wisdom of simplicity. Outside the viewport, Sarah could see the Phoenix, her battered ship now given a place of honor in the docking array. Its mismatched hull and visible repairs no longer drew scorn from passing vessels. Instead, it had become a symbol, a reminder that true resilience comes not from achieving perfection, but from embracing the lessons learned through imperfection. I should get back to work, Sarah said, checking her tool belt out of habit. Those maintenance crews still need training on the new backup systems. Before you go, Vexna said, the collective has a proposal. We would like to establish an engineering exchange program. Our quantum specialists working alongside human mechanics, learning from each other. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You want to send your perfect quantum engineers to work on ships held together with spare parts and creative swearing. And we would welcome human engineers here to learn our methods as well. The administrator's features arranged themselves in what was definitely amusement. After all, as you humans say, the best innovations often come from unexpected places. Sarah looked out at the city one more time, at its quantum matrices now working in harmony with simple mechanical systems, at its perfect crystalline towers now backed up by technology, basic enough to fix with a wrench and some wire. It was no longer just a monument to advanced technology. It had become something better, a testament to the power of combining the best of both worlds. Well, she said, grinning, wait until you see what we can build together. Above them, Nexus Prime's lights shone steadily, each one powered by a system that was no longer perfect, and was stronger for it, just like the alliance that had begun in a moment of crisis and would now shape the future of both species. Sometimes, Sarah thought, the best solutions come not from achieving perfection, but from learning to work with imperfection. It was a lesson humanity had learned long ago, and one they were now teaching to the stars themselves.